Welcome to Stab the Dragon Productions, episode number 158, DragonFire Cultural Commentary number 13. Now, I've written a lot more of these than I've actually produced. There's something about cultural commentary that you're revealing something of yourself there, you're setting yourself out there with opinions, and there's always danger with that, including this edition, because today, March 15th, the Ides of March, I'm talking about the coming war with China. Now, this is fictionalized. It's part of my opinion, but it's also fictionalized somewhat. So we're going to start with a pour of Cavallon single malt, ex-bourbon cask. This comes from Taiwan. This is a Taiwan distillery, Taiwan single malt. I think that's appropriate for this discussion. The experts have been saying for a while that they expect China to attack Taiwan by 2027. When I say the experts, I mean a lot of the military articles that I read. They're saying 2027 is when they really think China may go for Taiwan. And they think that that's when their military will be ready. And it will be just a few years short of their demographic tipping point, where their population, which is already declining, but their military population is going to be declining as well. And so there's some economic factors involved with that as well. Recent stories about massive corruption greatly affecting the People's Liberation Army and the subsequent sacking of many generals may indicate that the PLA is not able to invade at this time. However, I, as a total amateur, disagree. I believe that the war for Taiwan and South Korea will begin possibly on December 24th, our time, December 25th, their time, this year, 2024. And the following details why I think that is. And again, keep in mind this is highly fictionalized, and I hope that I'm wrong. See, wars are seldom waged when the military is ready. War is politics by other means, and so political conditions are the driving force, not the military conditions. Because politicians frequently don't listen to the military, and military doesn't really want to go to war usually, and so they try to stall things, and so politics and military are frequently against each other. But right now, China knows that America is currently weak, divided, and has a very weak, compromised president in Joe Biden. So right now, March 2024, it seems like Trump may beat Biden again in the Democrat, if the Democrat cheating is not able to stop it this time. But the Dems have Plan A, Plan B, and Plan C. If Trump wins in November, Plan B goes into effect. Plan A is to wage lawfare and a campaign to defeat Trump. But Plan B goes into effect if he actually manages to win in November, and the polls are favoring that. And this would be a series of riots and insurrection in every major city that will make 2020 and the George Floyd riots look tame. These riots may begin the week after the election and continue right up until late January, when Trump would be scheduled to take office. America will be shut down, scared, divided. There may even be the JFK event. Word to the wise. However, for the past 3 years, the border's been wide open as a policy of the Obama-Biden administration. Coming across the border have been people from all around the world, including tens of thousands from China. Many reports on both liberal and conservative news. I've read this in the New York Times, I've seen it on CNN, I've seen it on Fox News. So this is not a liberal or conservative view. This is, everybody recognizes this. They've all talked about how these tens of thousands of young Chinese men of military age are coming over as a unit, not like other immigrants No, these guys are housed together. They march together. They are receiving some training together. This is like an army, okay? Uh, Now, along with, and the total numbers, I mean, we're looking, I've seen estimates of 30 to 40,000 seems to be the normal estimate, but some estimates go up to over 100,000 of the Chinese that have come through. And then you combine that with the tens of thousands of Muslims from the Middle East. Again, young men, unaccompanied. These aren't young families with children, although there's some of that are coming here to get jobs and make a new start. These are young men unaccompanied of military age. Are they freedom-loving men seeking asylum from the oppression of communist China? Are they capitalistic, loving America type guys? I don't think so. I think, particularly in the Chinese case, we're looking at a trained light infantry force. Imagine, if you will, that these Chinese are assigned as teams, military units with clear targets across the country. Arms and ammunition have been and are being shipped to various areas. Not to mention the fact that Chinese American citizens who are working with the Chinese government can legally purchase firearms and get them to these other guys. So, but what would they be shipping here? We do so much trade with China. It's very easy to conceal shipments of weapons and ammunition. These would include fully automatic assault rifles, machine guns, grenades, mortars, anti-tank weapons like RPGs, even missiles, and perhaps some surface-to-air missiles. When you look at how much freight comes from China, yeah, this is entirely possible. For what purpose would the People's Republic of China send this army into America? To attack America from within when they invade Taiwan. This would clearly occupy our minds so that we don't fully commit to Taiwan's defense. What would this Chinese army attack? First of all, I don't think that they would all gather together in 1 or 2 divisions and act like a real army. No, get that picture out of your head. This is an army of irregulars. They would disperse across the country and attack scores of targets, maybe even hundreds of targets. What kind of targets, you say? Well, if small units of platoon size, say 30 to 50, spread out in various locations and simply attack cities, spreading death and destruction, that alone would spark fear and chaos, not to mention mass casualties. But suppose a heavier unit of 200, 300, 500 attack specific important targets. It could seriously affect our war effort. Suppose, I live here in Texas, Fort Worth. Suppose a group of 500 of these Chinese irregulars attacked Dyess Air Force Base in Abilene, Texas. Why Dyess Air Force Base? It's the home of a B-1 bomber wing, complete with nukes in the arsenal. How easily could 500 Chinese soldiers take the base? People don't realize this, but at most Air Force bases, there's only about 150 to 200 security police. That's the Air Force infantry, right? They are not really cops. I mean, they are designed for base security. So 150 to 200 guarding the base. Well, at any one time, they're going to be short-staffed. You're going to have people on vacation, on leave. You're going to have people sick, people with days off, whatever. You're only going to have, a few, like 50 on duty at any one time. So a surprise attack, if you're not expecting it, if you have no intel on it, you're not prepared for it. I mean, to face down an attack by, say, 500 Chinese light infantry who are armed with mortars and light machine guns and grenades, assault rifles, it would take time to go to the arms room, to draw your weapons, to go to the ammo supply point and unlock that, sign for ammunition, distribute the ammunition, load the magazine. I mean, it would take time. It's not like these guys are out there with their guns. I mean, there's some with guns, right? Around the base, there's some guard posts. But a surprise attack? Oh, absolutely. 500 Chinese could take a base. The same with Barksdale Air Force Base in Bossier City, Louisiana. What's at Barksdale? Bossier City? Really? It's home of a B-52 wing. That B-52 wing used to be stationed right next to me here in Fort Worth. Again, the Chinese would have surprise to their advantage. All of a sudden, with just 500 Chinese light infantry, they could take Barksdale and the nukes that are there. So all of a sudden, with just 1,000 of these 40,000 Chinese soldiers in our country illegally, they have control of 2 wings of strategic bombers and nukes. Oh, and then there's the ICBM bases. Let's say North Dakota, Minot Air Force Base. Now, nuke missile bases are a bit tougher because the silos are spread out over 100 square miles. You know, they're spread out forever. And so they've got a base headquarters, and you could take that. But taking a missile silo, that's a little bit harder of an operation. But still, if they were attacked there on the ground, you could disrupt operations. And so we wouldn't have the immediate ability necessarily to respond to that. Where else would the Chinese light infantry attack? Maybe send 2,000 of them to Washington, D.C., another 2,000 to take New York City, and maybe another 2,000 to take Los Angeles. Perhaps some teams go to nuclear power plants like Comanche Peak in Glen Rose, Texas. Now, nuke power plants like Glen Rose have security, armed security. I've known some guys who worked there, right? But guess what? There's only about a dozen guys on duty at any one time. At shift change, you might have a couple of dozen. How are you going to defend against a team of 100 Chinese with machine guns and mortars and hand grenades and RPGs? No, you're not going to be able to defend against that. So all of a sudden, these Chinese light infantry have a nuclear power plant as a hostage. The PRC leaders could then tell our government, hey, don't respond while we invade Taiwan. But wait, there's more. In late October of this year, suppose a fleet of very normal-looking container ships leave their ports in China, heading to the various ports in America that they are prone to go to. Los Angeles, Houston, New Orleans, New York, Seattle, sure. But these ships have Chinese mechanized infantry battalions on board with artillery and air defense and missile batteries, along with all their ammo and supplies. The ships are timed to arrive at their various designated seaports simultaneously. There was just an article in the papers and on the news last week about they figured out that these big cranes that have been purchased for American ports from China have communication devices on them that would possibly allow China to operate those cranes. Oh, you think? So now you've got these big container ships that are really not container ships. Well, they're container ships, but they have Chinese army units on board. They offload into port cities. Now they control the ports. They control the cities. And then don't forget Cuba, right? There's already been some threat that, hey, the Chinese are in Cuba. Well, maybe so. Maybe they've got some Chinese missiles there hidden, or some aircraft are suddenly arrived. And you can't forget about passenger jets landing at our airports from China. Maybe some of those flights have soldiers instead of passengers and weapons, and they land at LAX or SeaTac or Denver or Chicago or Dallas-Fort Worth. Meanwhile, China gives North Korea the go signal, and they invade South Korea at the same time that China attacks Taiwan. So now we're dealing with Chinese light infantry and maybe even mechanized infantry and armor inside of our country, while North Korea is attacking South Korea, China is attacking Taiwan. You know, North Korea may attack the Philippines and Guam and Japan as well. And don't forget about the large Muslim population from Iran that suddenly tells their sleeper cells to activate and cause a lot of random chaos, all while BLM and Antifa are burning down our cities because of the election, right? Then there's the secret Chinese labs that I've seen in the news for the last year, right? They've found several of these labs. And what about the Chinese police stations they have found, like in New York City? Okay, what are these about? Well, all of a sudden, let's release COVID-20 or whatever, you know? So they've been working on bioweapons, probably funded by your tax dollars. Absolutely. So Christmas Eve. Why Christmas Eve? Well, a lot of soldiers and sailors would be on leave. There you go. Our guard would be down. It's the biggest holiday of the year. Certainly. Ships would be in port. Chinese missiles are targeted our ships in Japan. So yeah, air crews were away visiting family. Army bases are on half-day schedule. The political class back home is in their districts enjoying the fruits of their secret business deals with all the graft and corruption. So that's why I think this year, around Christmas, may be the time that the war with China starts. But again, this is all just fiction. This is just some dystopian fiction that I'm coming up with. Nothing to see here. Nothing to worry about. Move along. Sleep well, my friends. Your government hates you. This is Stab the Dragon, out here.